I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. What is the burden of proof of this motion? The burden of proof of this motion is why is it urgent to take to tax these corporations, and the stance that we will use is where would we heavily tax these corporations to a certain context. The context is that we only tax corporations, heavily tax corporations that has 50% or more of their production done by automation. For corporations that doesn't use more than 50%, to anticipate the loophole of 49% use, we would progress the taxes based on how much the automation is done by the company. What exactly is using 50% of or more automation looks like? In our side of the house, the company will lay off 50% of their laborers to replace them with automation machine. On another note, because they lay off laborers to replace them with automation, they will have to be taxed more for the compensation of raising the unemployment rate. These taxes will be charged as a new tax method being called the automation tax. And if they do not lay off laborers but add automation beside labor, or lay off less than 50%, they would be taxed regardless based on the percentage of labor loss or the automation happening. Now the problem of this motion is that the manufacturing companies is the one of the largest supply of jobs. Now as the first speaker of proposition, I would bring forward one major argument about how it is justified and how is it beneficial of this taxation to secure the job market. Now I will bring forward 3 layers in my argument. The first layer is going to be how this will benefit and secure the job market. The second is what does this mean for the companies, and 3, what does this taxation do as a whole. So first of all, securing the job market. One of the obligations of the government is to supply people with jobs so that the unemployment rate will drop, people will be able to be self-sufficient, and they would not be dependent from the help of the government, and this will also increase the prosperity rate in the nation as a whole, further highlighting the importance of government's role in this motion. Now, what is the correlation between heavily taxing the companies and the role of the government as a main supplier of jobs? We all know that blue-collar worker makes up most of nation's job because they are easy and don't need further education or a lot of training to do so. Now, this is aligned with manufacturing work. Working at a factory is one of the easiest jobs as a blue-collar worker. This means that a lot of people who is not lucky enough to have the proper training or proper education can work at these factories. In their side of the house, where they would be against heavily taxing this corporation, it is just a matter of time before almost the whole production process is done automatically. Now this would lead to corporation to cut off blue-collar workers almost as a whole, because one, automation reduces companies' financial burden because of the fact that blue-collar worker needs wage, and a wage being compared to reparation works for example for the machines. Wages have is always a burden because it is done monthly, while repairing machines only done once probably in a year. Now secondly is that blue-collar workers need breaks, they need times, while machines, they don't need time, they work day and night to support the company. This is why on their side of the house, they are opting for a cheaper and more effective solution for the corporations in the sacrifice of people. But that doesn't mean that the government is not accommodating these companies. The government is actually doing one, making sure that we are filtering a good company. Now, so the government, of course, has an obligation to supervise the company. So then the government would punish the corporation that harm the people of the government, such as this motion with automation, but also reward a good company by giving it tax write-off or etc. To the government is a fair medial ground for both. This taxation highlights the fact that government is allowing companies to automate their workforce. The problem is there. They need a middle way, so the government would make sure that the companies still profit, but not at the cost of the people or the government. So then why do I mean by not at the cost of the people or the government? It means that in their side of the house, the government is damaged by the rising unemployment rate due to the layoff that the company is doing, but also because of the lower taxes caused by the lack of productive citizens. The people, of course, get harmed because they do not have a job to sustain their day-to-day needs. Now, what does this taxation do? this taxation do is securing the workforce in 3 levels. The first one is becomes a fair consideration metric. It will make the company consider this automation whether it is more beneficial than keeping their workforce, because if they do become a company that has a lot of automation, not only does the company pay taxes but also need to compensate for their workforce, so like fees or like firing fees and etc. Now this will secure the work field for workers. One, making sure there is a communication between companies and government, because if the government is not there as a middleman, then the company will always be profit oriented or efficiently oriented and would always want to get rid of workers in order to cut loss. 3, compensation by the government. The taxes can be used by the government to provide aid to workers who had been laid off until they find a new job. And secondly,